Once again, it's on. You know what time it is. It's time to play some toss. Welcome, everyone, to episode 110 of the Tristain Sports Show Toss. Yes, it is your main man, T-Squared, Tristain Thomas. Thank you all so very much for joining us. This week, the Green Bay Packers, they back. Training camp has begun. We'll talk about a name that's catching a lot of people's ears and eyes. The Milwaukee Brewers at the trade deadline. I got some words, and they're not particularly nice. And then the toss sweep. Sports world lost two huge titans of their respective sports. But you all know how we get things started here on Toss. We get things started with the state of the state, and let's get into it. Let's start with those Green Bay Packers, as I mentioned before. They back. They are back. Training camp has begun. Dream Drive is humming with many different bikes, and if you're not familiar with what the Green Bay Packers do, the players ride fans' bikes over to the practice field, practice facility. A wonderful tradition. They renamed it Dream Drive. Kids get involved. They get to hang out with their favorite Packers players for a little bit and have an experience that will never leave them. It's a wonderful thing, but they're back in training camp. The road to a successful season has begun. Right? It all starts at training camp. Well, guys have done work in the offseason, and you can clearly see on the field. Who's fighting to make those last couple of spots that may be available? Who may be an approved player, but just not quite there to make the main roster, but you're going to stash them on the practice squad. It's this part of the journey that I truly enjoy. Not just the regular season, not just that journey, but the journey to crafting and shaping a team from the very get-go. Seeing guys as improvements. That's what's intriguing to me. That's what I enjoy seeing. Guys are fighting for roster spots. You see them hungry and really fighting. Guys have improved in the offseason. How does that contribute together as a team? How does that come together? What does that look like? This is the part of the journey that I'm always intrigued by, that I always love to see, just unfold bit by bit. You got a lot of players heaping praise on other players. Aaron Rodgers has heaped praise on Rasul Douglas, the cornerback, saying he's one of the smartest players he's ever played with. And IQ-wise, he reminds him of Charles Woodson. That's very, very high praise. You talk about a Hall of Famer. That's very, very high praise. Rasul Douglas definitely had an impact season last season. You're looking for a lot of that this season. This defense, a lot of people who have, a lot of national media types have been to Green Bay Packers training camp practices. They can't stop raving about that defense, and they really feel that this could be one of the better defenses in all of the league. They were top 10 last season. They were not the reason for that divisional round playoff loss last season. Definitely not the defense's fault. They did their job. They will do the job again this year. When you're talking about how deep you are in that backfield, talk about a healthy Jair Alexander, an ascending Eric Stokes, Rasul Douglas. You got a really good safety tandem in Savage and Amos, who does not get the credit that he deserves. How good they are on the back end makes them even more dangerous on the front end. Rashawn Gary has opened a lot of eyes. Preston Smith had a nice bounce-back season. He's going to continue to take a step forward. That D-line is nasty as ever, led by Kenny Clark. The linebacking core, led by Devondre Campbell. You think Quay's going to get up in there? make some plays. He already has been. It's going to make that front seven even nastier if the back end can do their job, and I fully believe that they will. But one player in particular in the offset of Packers training camp this season that's really catching the ears and eyes of just about everyone is rookie wide receiver Romeo Doubs. Now, Doubs is getting a lot more repetitions because Christian Watson. Oh my gosh, it's like Walker. Christian Watson is not. It currently on PUP, recovering from a knee procedure. So he's getting a lot more repetition, and he's making the most of it. He's burned Eric Stokes for a long touchdown. Burned a couple of other guys on the sideline. He's going up and competing for those 50-50 balls, being physical. He's really, really been a problem in the red zone for defenders. He is making the most of his time, of his unopposed time, while Watson is not here, and you're really trying to figure out the hierarchy of this receiving core post Devontae Adams. Allen Lazard is talking, he wants to be the best, receiver in the league. Sure. Okay. That's a very lofty goal, and I'm not saying that you can't reach that. Opportunity is there. Will you take it? A healthy Amari Rodgers in the slot, will he take time away from Randall Cobb? I don't know. We all know the connection that Rodgers has with Randall Cobb. Randall Cobb, a veteran, 12th season. He's that veteran voice in that locker room, especially in that wide receiver room. You have ample opportunity when Watson comes back. We'll see. But he's making the most of his time, and I have to say he has been impressive. But again, it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good sign for the Packers because you need a wide receiver to break out. It's not a want. It is a need. Now, I've said this before. I'll say it again. Matt LaFleur from that Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. What does Kyle Shanahan want to do? He wants to run the football physically. He wants to play good defense physically. Well, Matt LaFleur and this Green Bay Packers squad, they're built a lot like that. Tough, hard-hitting, physical defense. Two backs that give you something different, but they're all productive. You got the speed and shiftiness of Aaron Jones, and you got the absolute sledgehammer of Quadzilla himself, A.J. Dillon. They're built a lot like that, but you still have the reigning, defending, 4-time NFL MVP Aaron Rodgers back there. You're going to have to sling the football. And you're going to have to sling it to guys who have that connection with them. Those guys who know where they need to be. Who are doing the right things. Running the right routes. Keeping it alive when he's out of the pocket. Randall Cobb has been around Aaron Rodgers. He's played with Aaron Rodgers for a long time. Allen Lazard has got some years on his belt playing with Aaron Rodgers. But you can't say either of those guys has ever been a number one. Randall Cobb has been highly productive, especially when he was healthy and a little bit younger than what he is now. He was definitely a weapon, but you can't say that he was the number one. Allen Lazard shows flashes. He's physical, one of the best blocking wide receivers in all of the NFL. Again, has shown flashes of what he could do, but never has put it together consistently. Now, some of that you can fault Aaron Rodgers always looking for Devontae Adams because, again, that connection was special. It was otherworldly. But at the same time, I can't say that every time Lazard's number was called, he came through. But I can't sit here and say that he doesn't have the potential to do so. We need to see it. We need tangible proof he can be that guy. And if not him, is it going to be Watson? If not him, is it going to be Dobbs? Are you going to spread it around? I wouldn't be opposed to that. I think that's something that Rodgers needs to do a little bit more of. I think at times he had just got stuck looking for Devontae and forcing it into him. And a lot of the times it worked. But then there are times, especially in the playoffs, teams know where you're going to go. They know where you're going to go. And it just doesn't work. So maybe spreading it around a little bit is a good idea. But I feel the Packers need a breakout season from someone. They need that out of this receiving core. We're not even talking about tight ends. We're just purely talking about wide receivers. They need a breakout performance. So on one hand, it's a good sign that Dobbs is doing all this, showing you that he's not afraid to go up and be physical in the red zone, be physical in the middle of the field, challenge those defenders, be successful in burning them, fighting, being physical for the football at its highest point. He's showing all of this. So it's a good sign that, yeah, okay, he's showing all this and it's something to be excited about. But on the flip side, you can't hype this up too much. A lot of that was done in shorts and a shirt. Now, he did some work in the same fashion when they had their first padded practice earlier this week. If that can continue, if that can actually translate to game day, I mean, you have something very, very special. And then if Watson ends up being the receiver that we all feel he can be, you got something special going. You can hit on both of those guys. That's something special. And that's what you need in the draft. That's what you need when you're a good team. You're consistently in the playoffs. You're consistently going deep in the playoffs. You're not going to get the highest draft picks. And you can't always juggle your assets to try to move up. You have to be smart. You have to do your due diligence. And you have to hope that your picks hit. You know, and I didn't even mention Sammy Watkins or anybody else. You know, if he stays healthy, I mean, that's a big boost. He's won a championship with the Chiefs. He knows what it takes. But you need a breakout season from someone. You have to have that. You absolutely have to have that. And to this point, it's looking like Dobbs. But again, don't get too hype about it. It's training camp. Let's see if it actually translates to real game day. I'm not talking training camp. I know a lot of guys who are, especially ones that are fighting for spots, are treating that like a real game, like it counts on the record. 1 of 17. But I want to see this tangibly happen in real life action. Translate it to game day and do it consistently. And the Packers got something special going with their wide receiver core. We'll keep an eye on Packers training camp as it continues to roll on. Speaking of rolling on, let's move on here on Toss state of the state, to the Brewers. The Brewers and their trade deadline madness. I call it madness because I quite frankly don't know what the hell they're doing. Let me break down what they did. After years of the rumors just absolutely swirling, the Brewers finally did it. They finally traded Josh Hader. They traded him, of all teams, to the San Diego Padres, a contending team. In that trade, they received from San Diego pitcher Taylor Rogers, who I feel should be the setup guy. He was San Diego's closer, and he and Hader were really in the same boat. They had a really rough July, ballooned their ERA, but outside of that, they've been pretty automatic. Pitcher Dinelson Lamet, outfielder Ruiz, and pitcher Gasser. But they weren't done. They later traded for Trevor Rosenthal, a guy who has not pitched since 2020 and is still rehabbing. Okay? Then they traded for pitcher Matt Bush from the Rangers. High leverage situation guy. He's a good arm. I don't have a problem with that one, but you gave up too much for a 36-year-old guy. Then they subsequently designated Dinelson Lamet for assignment. He apparently didn't fall into the plans of their reclamation projects that they like to kind of pull off. You gave up an all-star closer, your best weapon outside of Williams. Let's be clear, Devin Williams, also an all-star. Absolute weapon at the back end of that bullpen. Right now, it's sounding like he'll share closer duties with Rogers, which okay. I say, why not put Devin Williams right in the closer spot? I think he's earned it. But apparently, they're going to share closing duties. Okay. But you get rid of Lamet, who you may end up having to pay his salary anyway. I believe he was on the hook for, I don't know, remaining $1.6 million, something like that. The numbers are fuzzy. But if he clears waivers, nobody picks him up. If he clears waivers, Brewers are on the hook for the rest of that money for a guy who is not going to pitch for you whatsoever and has the ability, because of his service time in the major leagues, to turn down your assignment, collect the rest of his salary, and then become a free agent and go wherever the hell he wants. It puts more of a sour taste in your mouth when you trade Josh Hader for a guy that you had no designs on keeping and maybe on the hook to pay his salary anyway. And a bunch of guys who are real. I mean, Rogers may help. You hope that July was just a blip and it wasn't the real him. You're throwing him into the closer's role because he was in the closer's role at San Diego. Okay, cool, I get it, but I think Williams should slide into that, and Rogers should be the setup guy until he shows that July was just a blip, much like Hader. Because that's what San Diego's betting on, and San Diego was just absolutely loaded up. Trading for Soto. Trading for Hader. I mean, they're trading for everybody. Josh Bell. They absolutely loaded up because they are going for it. They already have a murderer's row lineup with Machado, with Soto, with Bell. Tatis is not even back yet. Just wait till he gets back. Good luck. They get a lead, They are now able to shorten that game up because now they've got Josh Hader at the back end of that bullpen waiting to get guys out. And he's going to do it. We've seen it consistently right here in Milwaukee. So you see the Padres going for it. They're all in. They're going for it. And then you see the Brewers, who are in first place, who have very specific needs, not address any of them, and if anything, make their team worse by getting rid of their all-star closer. Now, there's some things behind the scenes with that. Mainly contract. Now, there was another year of team control, but there was no way that the Brewers were going to pay Josh Hader the money that he wanted. He's going to become due, and he's going to make a hell of a lot of money. And the Brewers are just looking at it like, okay, we're not going to give him this money, even though he's a multi-time All-Star and even though he's a multi-time Trevor Hoffman NL reliever of the year. We can't afford that. I mean, look at the July he had. Maybe he's starting to go on a downtrend. Whatever excuse that Stearns and Antanasio, Brewers owner, wants to make in getting rid of Josh Hader and collecting a bunch of guys who are really in the same vein of all the guys they currently have on the roster. Yes, you're in first place because you get to feast on bottom feeders, even though that hasn't gone well the past couple of nights. It's been beaten by the Pirates. But you can feast on bottom feeders and balloon your record. But when it gets to postseason, your regular season record doesn't matter. You're not going up against bottom feeders anymore. You're going up against the best of the best. And you don't stack up. I say this with all the love and respect in the world for Herb Cole. I love Herb Cole. I've said it on this program many times. He has saved basketball in the state of Wisconsin, the city of Milwaukee, on multiple occasions. I have nothing but the utmost respect and love for Senator Cole. But for decades, he was mired in this mindset of chase the 8, just make the playoffs. Let's make the team make money, and I am happy. I am good. I am content. The Brewers are now the Bucks from years ago. Mark Antanasio is the new Herb Cole. He is perfectly fine with making the playoffs. He is perfectly fine with winning division championships and nothing else. Because these moves right here that he allowed Stearns to go and make, they did not. Look, I'm looking at it, and maybe I'm in my chest and maybe I'm in my feels about it. I'm not the only one. But looking at this, looking at what he got for Josh Hader, looking at who they went out and traded for, yes, they needed another arm in the bullpen. I think Matt Bush may be a guy that can do that. You pretty much traded evenly. I can't even say evenly, but you're looking at the season or the July they had, it looks even. Another left-hander who's going to be a closer, and Rogers from San Diego. You gave up too much for a 36-year-old Matt Bush. Yes, he's a high-leverage arm. Something you needed in that bullpen, but everybody was saying that when they thought you still had Josh Hader in that bullpen. Now you don't. You needed another bat. You really didn't address that at all. You traded for a guy who hasn't pitched since 2020 and is still rehabbing. Yes, you got Freddie Peralta back finally. He's making a start. But looking at this on paper, and again, I will try my best to reserve true judgment until we see if any of these guys make any sort of impact on the field. If these moves catapult the Brewers' lead from a mere couple of games to, double digits. They get scorching hot. This offense stays consistent. Okay, cool. But looking at this on paper, looking at the seasons these guys are having, or the seasons that they're not having because they're injured, this team did not improve any. If anything, it got worse, or it just stayed the same. I've said it on this program for years. You cannot come into the new season with the same offense that you had the year prior. Can't do it. Cannot do it. And what did they do? The same thing every single year. They keep the same mindset on offense. Guys who can launch the ball out the park, but that's only if they make contact. David Stearns came from the Houston Astros organization, and the things they did with analytics and all that, and they put that collection of players together. That squad ended up winning a World Series. Obviously, Stearns was a big part in helping to assemble that team. He was already in Milwaukee by the time they had won a World Series. He's trying to replicate that. Houston's still having success. They're still one of the better teams in the AL. But Stearns is trying to replicate that. And the closest they've gotten is Game 7 of the NLCS, which they lost to the Dodgers. David Stearns, combined with Mark Antanasio, have become the new Herb Cole. They have ushered in a chase the playoff mentality, and they are fine with just getting to the playoffs and not going anywhere else. They can talk a big game saying, oh, we want championships and, the analytics show this and that, whatever, what have you. But you see what everybody else is doing around you. And I'm not saying go and replicate what San Diego did. San Diego has mortgaged their future in a lot of ways to try and go for it. Will they be able to keep Juan Soto? Probably not. He's going to get probably about $400 million from somebody. Will they be able to keep Josh Bell? Possibly. Machado's already locked up. They'll be able to keep a lot of these pieces together, but they're all in. They're going for it. Will they be able to keep Hader? I don't know. Maybe. But the point is they're going for it. And at some point, you have to look at what you have. You have historically good pitching with Burns and Woodruff and Peralta. At one point, Josh Hader, Devin Williams. You have really good pitching. You got some pretty decent defense, especially up the middle. But your offense stinks. You got a lot of guys who can't make contact. When they do, they can launch the ball out the park, but they don't make a consistent enough contact to have a consistent offense. That has been the issue every postseason, and it still has not been addressed. Mark Antanasio is fine with making the playoffs and nothing else. Let's operate in the black. Let's get to the playoffs. If we win a division, even better. We stay out that wild card situation. That means we can make multiple games of revenue at AmFam Field. And I'm good with that. But I got to tell you, Mark, Brewers fans ain't okay with that. People are fed up with that. You can't have this kind of pitching, which who knows how long you're going to be able to keep these guys together. I know you got Peralta locked up. You're going to have to pay Corbin Burns. You're going to have to pay Woodruff. You got rid of Hader. Going to have to pay these guys. That window was starting to close. You're chucking out pieces of your farm system that you've been trying for years to rebuild. And you're already chucking out pieces for guys who are older, guys who are injured. This chase the 8 mentality, and that's just what I call it. You know, I know it's baseball. It's not basketball. There is no 8 seed. But this chase the 8 mentality, this chase the playoffs mentality, it's fine for a fan base that haven't been to the playoffs in 30 years. And at one point, Brewers hadn't been consistently making the playoffs. Now they're consistently making it year after year. But at some point, you're going to have to do something when you get there. You can't just be happy to be there. You can't just bring in pieces that will get you there. You have to bring in pieces and keep pieces that will get you to a World Series, that will win in postseason, not just get there. So I mean, I honestly don't know what you do, but there's going to need to be a retooling. Because, yeah, making the playoffs is great. But when you have a fan base, it's like, okay, you made the playoffs, you won your division. What are you going to do in the playoffs? You're going to waste more good pitching with an inconsistent offense? Making the playoffs is great. But not when your fan base is not happy with how you got there. And the fact that they know that they don't stand a chance in postseason. There's a lot of work to be done. Still some baseball to be played. Brewers in a tightly contested NL Central with the Cardinals. That's really their only competition. They'll get to the postseason. I got to say, as things stand as they are right now, with an inconsistent offense, I don't see them doing too much. I know Woodruff said he feels they could do what the Braves did last season. I'm not too sure. And that's the state of the state. The Packers back. They're in training camp. Romeo Dobbs is impressing. Packers, you take that as a grain of salt right now, but you got to be a little bit excited because they need a breakout wide receiver this season. And the Brewers, trade deadline madness. Nobody feels the team got any better. Your own team is shell-shocked that you got rid of Josh Hader. This chase the 8 mentality has made Mark Antanasio and David Stearns the new Herb Cole. Something's got to change. It's time for us to run the toss sweep. Facebook.com/TON Sports Show. That's TON Sports Show, your home for Toss on Facebook. Touch on a lot of things there that we don't necessarily get a chance to right here on the show. Facebook.com/TON Sports Show. That's TON Sports Show. Oh, man, I had some ideas for this week's Toss Sweep that can most definitely wait. It's been a rough week in the sports world with two gigantic titans of their respective sports passing away. It's hard. And I don't like really saying on on tape, but Vince Scully passed away. legendary voice of the Dodgers. He also made the call of Dwight Clark's catch, the catch for the 49ers, back of the end zone. Anytime I was on the West Coast and there was a Dodger game going on, I made sure to tune in just to hear his voice. There was a certain warmth and friendliness, like you'd always known him. And the stories he would tell, the anecdotes, it just made you smile. And then he would call the action, and you always felt like you were there. When he joined Twitter, I made sure to follow him because I knew that it was just going to be outstanding. I knew he was going to share more stories, and he did that. Anytime he put up a tweet and he was sharing a story and making connections within the sports world, it's like, oh, really? Like, whoa, like I never thought about that. Like, that's wild. Definitely was already missed on the mic when he signed off. Definitely going to be missed even more now. Prayers to his family, to his friends, to his colleagues, and everyone he's come in contact with, because I'm pretty sure that they were changed and for the better, having come in contact with him. You know, I was a fan from far away. You know, I can't say I'm a Dodger fan, but, you know, when I did spend some time on the West Coast, and, you know, and whenever I was, I definitely made sure to tune in, and it was always well worth it. As hard as that one is, and I know a lot of people are taking that one hard, he was an absolute legend, was Vin Scully. Another legend, another titan, another great human being passed away. Sorry, I have to take a minute. There were three people that I always wanted to sit down and speak with. Not even an interview. Just talk about life with. Just have a conversation with. Muhammad Ali, Henry Aaron, and Bill Russell. Bill Russell passing away at 88. And for as great of a basketball player as he was, how he changed the game defensively, the rebounding and the fundamentals. And again, he really brought the intimidation into the game. Just a fierce competitor, just an amazing competitor. We all know, more rings than fingers. First black head coach in NBA history. Won a championship as a player coach. Won 2 championships overall as a coach. All the accolades you can think about. Multi-time NBA MVP, Finals MVP, All-Star, everything. He had all the accolades. He did it all on the basketball court. An absolute legend, one of the greatest in the game. For as great as he was on the court, within his sport, it's a bunch of love that he garnered from, you know, those who competed against him on the court. Those coming up in the game and respecting the history of it, and learning about him and knowing about him. As much as he had that love from them, he was a titan off the court. A beacon of fight in the fight for civil rights and injustices. I mean, you're talking the man was in his 80s and he's still taking a knee with Colin Kaepernick. Still fighting for justice. A big advocate for mentorship. I put it out there, and I don't remember the social media platform. I don't know if it was Twitter. I don't remember if it was the Toss Facebook page, but I put out there that, you know, I learned how to play defense. in basketball from watching he and Red Auerbach's tapes. Red Auerbach would teach different fundamentals of the game, and they got to one about defense. And I just, at this point, me and my dad, we would always talk about a lot of things, and sports was one of them. And he would talk about people who were, as LeBron would say now, my dad didn't say it back then, but I guess you could kind of use the analogy now, but they were more than an athlete. They fought for the rights of others off the court and did a lot of great things off the court. And they were as good of a basketball or an athlete as they were an even better human being, and Bill Russell was one of them. And I don't want to say I became obsessed, but anything dealing with Bill Russell, I had to absorb. I had to read. I had to, listen to him, listen to his words. And when I found out that Red Auerbach was doing those tapes and all that, I had to seek him out. I just had to see him, and I did. And I took the tips that Mr. Russell put out there, about how you have your knees a certain way when you're on defense, so you can move a little bit more fluidly, and how to box out and maybe a better basketball player. Because I kept those things in my head, and I went out on the court and I practiced them. And at the time, we really weren't allowed on the courts, because it wasn't always completely safe. Some days we were allowed, other days we weren't. So most of the time it was a milk crate on a post, and I'm out there trying to practice. And then one day my mom got us a portable hoop, and I was, on a concrete slab where our garage used to be, and was just doing it that way. Would set it up every day, and I'm just doing the things that Bill Russell said to do. The little things to make you a better ball player. But it wasn't just that I took from him. It was always fighting against injustice. And that's something that all three of those men shared. Muhammad Ali, Henry Aaron, Bill Russell. Fighting for those who are being done wrong, fighting against injustices. Being a better person outside of your profession. As good as you are, being great in your profession, but being a better person outside of all that. It's the biggest take that I took from Mr. Russell. And, I was, I'm not afraid to admit it. A couple tears were shed when I found out he had passed. And I just, you could come across his Twitter and it has an announcement. I'm like, no. And I read it and I'm like, drop my phone on the table, and I walk away, and I'm just taking my shirt and I'm just drying the tears. He meant a lot to this skinny black kid from Milwaukee. And the best way we could honor him is to continue to fight against injustices, continuing to be a beacon of light for others who need it, and not being afraid to fight. Rest in power, Vince Scully. Rest in power, Mr. Russell. You're already greatly missed. Well, y'all, that was episode 110 of Toss, Tristain on Sports Show. You know where to find me on social media at the20double. That's at the number 2, the number 0, and the word double. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at that name. TossNationMedia.com, your home for the Toss brand of sports. Truthful, opinionated, passionate sports. It's what you deserve. Facebook.com/T on Sports Show. That's TON Sports Show. We touch on a lot of things there that we don't get a chance to on this program. That's Facebook.com/T on Sports Show. That's TON Sports Show. But as I said before, it's time for me to get on up out of here. I'll be on vacation. We're on our summer schedule anyway, so no Toss next week, but we will be back the following week. So, this is T Squared, reminding all of you to keep it moving forward. Always forward. Forward always. We'll see you in 2 weeks. So long from Toss.